Mr. Chairman and Leader, Dr. Kofi Potofi, and Chairman of Congress, Your Excellency, former President John Dramani Mahama, members of the Council of Elders, National Executive Committee, Functional Executive Committee members of the Diplomatic Corps, representatives of political parties, chiefs, distinguished guests, delegates, members of the press, and members of our great parties, ladies and gentlemen. Before I proceed with the General Secretary report, let me, on behalf of the National Executive Committee, apologize to delegates for all the shortcomings in the organization of this historic Congress. Our information was that as late as midnight, some of the delegations were finding it difficult to locate their hotels. I hope you forgive us, because this is the largest gathering of political party members anytime since the beginning of the Fourth Republic. And in the history of NDC, we used to have just about 3,000 delegates. This Congress is historic in the sense that today we are hosting more than close to 9,000 delegates, and then an additional 4,000 observers. So definitely there will be challenges. We hope you forgive us, and then we can make progress. Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, following our electoral defeat in 2016, the National Executive Committee established a fact-finding committee headed by Professor Kwesi Boche, the former finance minister under President Jerry John Rawlings. Dear comrades and members, following the recommendations of the Boche Committee, the following steps have been taken in implementing what was recommended. The party has undertaken a complete replacement of our membership register. We've undertaken a comprehensive branch reorganization program, and we've done very successful constituency elections and equally successful regional elections. Again, comrades, successful organization of the Women and Youth Conference, at which we elected our new women organizer and her deputies, and a new youth organizer and his deputies. The party has since seen the formation of a forum of professionals in the NDC called the NDC Professionals. The establishment of the Progressive Intellectual Institutions, the Progressive Intellectual Group, has also seen the light of day in all our tertiary institutions. The party has also supported the party school, the Ghana Institute of Social Democracy, to undertake several training programs. It is worth noting that within a short period of its establishment, the party school has trained over 6,500 party members in various subjects, including our ideology, that is social democracy, grassroots mobilization, party organization, political communication, and constitutional studies. We hope to continue to mainstream the training in our efforts to strengthen our party for the future. Let me hereby recognize the hard work put in by the management and faculty of the Ghana Institute of Social Democracy. Mr. Chairman, two significant activities have contributed immensely to energizing the party at the grassroots, and these are the unity works undertaken in all the 10 regions of Ghana and the anti-American-based demonstrations that occurred in Accra and in Tamale. The turnout for each of these events was massive, and the effect is still manifesting in our efforts to put the party back on track. But ladies and gentlemen, let me state here that our march towards the reorganization and ultimately the recapture of power has not been without challenges. The party has suffered different forms of harassment and intimidation from both the MPP in government and its affiliate paramilitary groups, including Invisible Forces, Bulgar Bulldogs, Delta Forces, Western Crocodiles, Kandahar Boys, and so on and so forth. Mr. Chairman, the MPP government began harassing former government officials by staging false claims of missing government vehicles and following it up with actual seizure of vehicles by heavily armed security officers, and in some cases using members of their vigilante groups. There are recorded cases of physical attacks on our dear members of parliament, resulting in life-threatening injuries to community members suspected to be associated with the MPs or the NDC. The security agencies have also undertaken arrests of key figures and ordinary party supporters on trumped-up charges as part of the intimidation agenda. The party held several press conferences exposing some of these dastardly acts and drawing government's attention to the threat such acts pose to the stability of the state, but these were ignored. The acts of violence continue without let. And as the saying goes, every revolution begins to consume. I beg your pardon, I'll take that again. As the saying goes, every revolution begins to consume its members after it has finished dealing with its opponents. We are now witnessing attacks by MPP vigilante groups on members of the same MPP. Ladies and gentlemen, dear comrades, over the past 2 years, we have persistently joined like-minded Ghanaians to call on the government to halt the assault on our members and disband its vigilante groups. But all this went unheeded. We caution that should they refuse to do so, we would be compelled to take steps to defend ourselves. As is common knowledge now, members of our party have begun forming similar groups to protect our members and their properties. We find that as an unfortunate but legitimate outcome of the current atmosphere of intimidation from the MPP government and its vigilante group. We are, however, not shutting the door for negotiations that will end in ridding the country of party vigilante groups to allow the state security agencies to discharge their responsibilities of protecting Ghanaians from all walks of life, irrespective of their political affiliations. While we support the issuance of the national ID card to Ghanaians under the new program introduced by the MPP, we find it unacceptable that the government has embarked on a sinister plan to deny many Ghanaians their citizenship. In our view, the removal of the voter ID card from the breeder documents required for registration for the Ghana card represents clear and present danger. The previous law, which allowed Ghanaians to use any identity document, SNIT card, voter's ID card, passport, birth certificate, driver's license, baptismal certificate, etc., was amended to deliberately restrict the document to only passport and a birth certificate. We find a proviso that those without any of these two mandatory documents should swear an oath before registration, cumbersome and potentially disruptive of a smooth registration process. Our advice to the NIA that steps should be taken to make voter ID card one of the mandatory documents for registration has been publicly ignored. We take notice, however, that in the current mass registration exercise that began in Adenta and Medina districts, the NIA officially accepted the voter ID card as a valid breeder document for the acquisition of the Ghana card. We hereby call on government to do the honorable thing of amending the law to reflect the new reality. I will advise the new National Executive Committee to take up this issue immediately on assumption of office and review the party's position on the subject in view of the new position of the National Identification Authority. The government of the NPP has set in motion processes for the creation of 6 additional regions. As a party, we are not opposed to this policy since we proposed the creation of 5 regions in our 2016 manifesto. Our calls on the government to engage with us on the smooth implementation of the policy were also largely ignored. In the face of the agitation surrounding the approach adopted by government, we wish to advise that government takes all the necessary steps to remove the remaining impediments through a transparent and verifiable process founded on the laws of the country and respect for the traditional sensibilities of the people involved. Indeed, the NDC set itself on a path to realizing this policy by initiating the construction of 200 new senior high schools, popularly called the E-blocks, to accommodate the large numbers that will enroll when it finally rolled out the policy. Typical of the NPP, they jumped ahead of themselves and launched a propaganda of free SHS without adequate planning and secure financing. The evidence is the haphazard way the policy has been implemented so far. It is our considered view that the NPP government should have taken steps to complete all our 200 E-blocks to create more classroom space for the beneficiaries of what it called its flagship policy. The shift system, which has been marked as double track system with colors, is completely avoidable problem imposed on parents as a result of NPP's recklessness. We are calling on the government to immediately reverse the policy of capping statutory funds to release additional funding not only for the GET fund but for the common fund, which remains the key source of infrastructure development for the district assemblies. Mr. Chairman, Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we have observed with concern the manner in which the NPP government is weakening state institutions through a brazen approach of harassment and removing legitimately appointed heads of these institutions. Since it came to power, the NPP has schemed to improperly remove the heads of key institutions such as the Electoral Commission, the Bank of Ghana, Economic and Organized Crime Office, the head of the Criminal Investigation Department of the Ghana Police, and interfered in the authority structure of these strategic state agencies. It is now the turn of the universities and the Auditor General. We note with satisfaction the bold attempt by the Supreme Court of the land and the Chancellor of the KNUST to reverse some of these encroachments on the academic freedoms of our revered universities by government. The Electoral Commission has not been provided with sufficient funds to service its biometric registration equipment for the just ended limited registration exercise in some districts in the proposed new regions. Ladies and gentlemen, the Commission was therefore compelled to limit the registration exercise to its district offices instead of the electoral areas. This defeated the purpose of ensuring universal access by all voters to registration processes. It is our fear that if adequate resources are not made available to the EC timeously, the rollout of the limited registration exercise next year across the entire country will be imperiled. We therefore call on government to release sufficient funds to the Electoral Commission to enable it acquire all the necessary tools for the major exercise ahead. This will help avert any threat to stability of the country that could result from disenfranchising eligible voters. Mr. Chairman, I cannot end this report without commending our gallant members of Parliament for holding the feet of the Akufo-Addo government to the fire. But for their vigilance and active engagement, many otherwise bad government policies would have passed and would have imposed more severe hardship on Ghanaians than we are experiencing. We commend them highly and encourage them to continue along the line until we boot the MPP out of power in 2020. I wish to bring to your attention, fellow Akatamansonians, that our party continued to establish strong relations with socialist and social democratic institutions across the world. Our relationship with Socialist International has grown stronger over the years and has resulted in the election of the NDC General Secretary Johnson Asiedu Nketia in Cartagena in Colombia in 2017 as a Vice President of the Socialist International for a 4-year term. Our sister party relations have also blossomed over the last 4 years. We have expanded the number of parties we relate to closely, and these include the Communist Party of China, the Labour Party of the United Kingdom, the Social Democratic Party of Germany, the Social Democratic Party of Denmark, the Front Populaire Ivoirien of Côte d'Ivoire, the MPP of Burkina Faso, the CDC of Liberia, the MPLA of Angola, the African National Congress of South Africa, the SWAPO in Namibia, the Congress Party of India, and the Labour Party of France. I extend warm felicitations to representatives of all our sister parties who are present at this Congress. I wish to bring my report to an end by thanking all members of the party for responding to our call for reorganization and actually participated actively in bringing the party to this enviable battle-ready state. I have no doubt at all that if we sustain the enthusiasm in the party's forward march, we shall hold the next Congress of the NDC as the party in government. Let us work hard to remove the MPP from power and save Ghana from the path of destruction by this clueless government. 2020 is possible together. Long live Ghana, long live the National Democratic Congress, and may God bless our homeland, Ghana. Hey! 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 Thank you very much.